Tyquan Thornton is a blazing fast receiver who was the New England Patriots' second-round pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. At that time, Thornton was considered to be a bit of a reach by some analysts due to his limited production at Baylor up until his senior season, where he finally got some significant playing time. Thornton finished the 2021 season with 60 receptions and 10 receiving touchdowns thanks to his electric speed and his ability to blast past any defender that was put in his way. Thornton's tape showed that he had easy speed with long strides that made him collide to a wide open deep pass for a TD. Drafting one of the fastest players in NFL Combine history in the second round was a notable change for Bill Belichick, especially since Thornton was a deep threat wide receiver who was built for a vertical offense. The Patriots needed speed, and Thornton showed up to camp looking great despite the train wreck offensive play calling. Unfortunately, Tyquan broke his collarbone and his season was essentially derailed. He made back on the field and was able to contribute. Still, it was clear that several weeks on the sideline and Mac's ankle injury impacted their chemistry. On the other hand, Tyquan still had some strong flashes and displayed some versatility that gave me some confidence that Thornton could be a leading receiver for the Patriots this upcoming season. With Bill O'Brien back in the house, I expect Tyquan to have a big second-year leap and will be used appropriately. If all goes well, Tyquan will be one of the names being thrown around at the end of the season as a primary reason for a successful 2023 campaign. I believe Tyquan is pure nitro and will inject volatility in the defense and will rack up explosive plays this season. First, let's get some background on Thornton, and then we'll discuss how I see him being deployed during this upcoming season. To recap, Tyquan Thornton was the Patriots' second-round draft pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. He hailed from Baylor, where he was a big play wideout. During his rookie season for the Pats, Tyquan suffered a broken collarbone and missed a good chunk of the season. He returned against the Lions and played 12 games, chalking up 22 receptions for 247 yards and 2 touchdowns. In addition, he also had 3 carries for 16 yards and a touchdown. It is reasonable to say that Tyquan's rookie season showed some promise, but the injury and lack of targets left much to be desired. The expectation going into the season was that defenses would have to account for where he was aligned because he is such a big threat, because he is a big play waiting to happen. This should have opened up countless options for Mac because having Tyquan spreading the defense should have created vacuums, but play calling never set up anything up for the other receivers. In addition, Mac's subpar arm strength limited the play options to Thornton. Again, this was very disappointing because Thornton was bringing a novel talent to the Patriots offense. How novel is he? Let's talk measurables. Tyquan is 6'2", 181 pounds. His hands are 8 1/4. His arms are 33 1/4. His wing was 79 3/8. His 40 yard, 4.28, 98th percentile. 20 yard, 2.46, 98th percentile. 10 yard, 141, 99th. Shuttle, 4.39. 3 cone, 7.25. His vert was 36.5, and his broad came in at 10'10", 94th percentile. Yeah, 4.28. He's one of a handful of athletes in the NFL who can move at that speed, and it actually translates to the field. Now let's review Tyquan's attributes. Tyquan has incredibly smooth acceleration and deceiving speed. He has elite speed and cutting ability and decent hands along with respectable toughness. He is balanced and very fast with the ball in his hands because he can filter through oncoming traffic and explode through cracks and cutback lanes. Tyquan has superlative darting ability with breakneck stop-and-go acceleration. His re-acceleration creates separation just on horsepower output. This makes him incredibly dangerous in the open field, where he plays fast and is confident to lower his pads and run through tackles for extra yardage. He has no problem going over the middle of the field and can spin out tackles, and also take a big hit. Despite being a long athlete, he is able to show elusive footwork and is able to shake defenders. He is a savvy natural pass catcher with reliable hands and has very good focus. He snatches the ball out of the air and shows the concentration to make acrobatic catches look incredibly easy. He has long arms that give him a nice catch radius where he goes up and can attack the ball. Plus, those long arms provide him with a respectable stiff arm to use against defensive backs in the open field. Tyquan's best skill is ability to locate the ball and track deep passes, which makes him a legitimate vertical threat. His most underrated attribute is that he's a willing blocker who sustains on his blocks and does show good awareness of his assignments on run plays. On the downside, Tyquan did not always use his hands to secure deep throws in college, allowing the ball into his pads and chest. However, I didn't see that being a big problem last year, but maybe because he wasn't targeted that much. Another is his release package. Thornton doesn't have an extensive collection of releases to pull from, but he does have a couple good ones that he uses in order to get an effective release. When he's getting a tight press look, Thornton likes to jump back and release to get a gap between him and defender and then uses quickness just to beat him. When he's getting an off coverage look, Thornton typically bursts off the line to quickly get into his route and make the defender bail due to his blazing speed. They work, but he needs to develop a few more if the deep ball game is going to be limited with Mac. The big problem is his size. That obviously was an issue with the collarbone. In addition, NFL defenders were able to knock him off his route from time to time. So, he is relegated to being off the line to give him some space to evade a physical press. So, how can the Patriots unleash Tyquan this year? Again, Tyquan has exceptional speed, which is shown when he has to run deep routes. He has the downfield speed to simply just run away from defenders and put distance between himself and anybody else. He has electric burst, which just allows him to separate easily and put defenders in complex situations. He has pretty good ball skills. He does have a good job of tracking the ball deep and is able to catch the ball in stride and immediately accelerate once he secures the ball. Thornton has tremendous big play ability. He has the speed to flat out just run away from defenders and can just take up the top off of any zone. The big thing is that Thornton has the speed that needs to be accounted for in the NFL. He is a threat to score on any play if defenders cannot keep up with his speed. All that speed sounds good, right? So, his ideal role is obviously a vertical threat receiver or deep ball threat. His best scheme fit is obviously a vertical offense. Unfortunately, the Patriots are not known for this, and Mac doesn't have the mechanics to unload down the field. I suggest you watch my video about fixing Mac's arm strength. However, last year the Patriots were actually statistically a big play offense. Mac did a decent job of placing the ball deep on the perimeter for Parker, and for Bourne when he was actually allowed to play. Even Myers had some decent plays downfield. The problem was Mac failed to get these guys in stride and the yak was terrible. Tyquan tried to get involved here, but he would have to break his route and make a huge adjustment for the ball. So can they even use him? Well, I think Bill O'Brien can come up with some options where Tyquan's speed can be used horizontally, while still employing a stretch to the defense. The problem is, does Tyquan's speed create problems for the remaining receivers once you throw them into combos? Tyquan will need space. I think we should see some air raid concepts this year to spread the defense both vertically and horizontally. Before we get into this, I am simply showing you some concepts. I am not proposing an entire change in offensive strategy or mentality. Trust me, I know New England's not going full-blown air raid, ever. But the concepts and benefits of air raid are worth noting. First, let's go over what the air raid offense is and its core principles. The air raid offense has 4 or 5 wide receivers on the field with a shotgun formation. The goal of the air raid offense is to stretch the field horizontally and vertically, making the defense cover an immense area. This makes it great against both man and zone coverage. Air raid offenses score a lot of points quickly because the thinly spread defense creates situations where the receiver only has to beat 1, maybe 2 defenders to get into the end zone. In general, the air raid frequently employs 2 concepts, the mills and the shallows. The mills concept is not a play, but is a process that air raid teams will use on the backside of their plays. The Mills concept is great because it helps beat any too high coverage such as cover 2 or 4. The two players on the backside of the concept will run a dig roughly around 8 to 10 yards down the field. The X receiver will then run a skinny inside post. This stresses the quarterback and the safety who needs to choose to help on the dig or the backside post. The read is easy for the quarterback. He follows the safety. If the safety goes low, throw the post. If he stays high, throw the dig. The shallow concept takes advantage of the teams that go too high safeties to match up against the air raid offense. This concept focuses on the outside backer using a wide receiver who will run a dig and the underneath receiver who will run a shallow cross. The linebacker needs to choose if they should go with the shallow cross or deepen up for the dig behind them. This concept is frequently combined with the Mills concept, which strains the defense to cover the whole width of the field as well as the length of the field for the deepest post. You can understand why the air raid works here. Pick your poison on two levels of the defense simultaneously. On the downside, air raid requires superior athletic talent, which the Patriots have a limited amount of. Luckily, it also requires a smart quarterback who can process reads quickly, which is Mac's forte. The other downside is the offense's time of possession, which is minimal. You're either scoring quickly or you're off the field quickly. So you can't control the clock, which is a necessity to Bill Belichick, and I agree on that. Because if your offense is off the field quickly, that means your defense is on the field longer and will tire out rapidly. So you can see why I stress the idea of employing some concepts and not going all in on air raid. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, let's take a look at some of these concepts and see how the Patriots might be able to employ them to maximize Tyquan. One of the more common formations is the 3-1, with an early or late variation, with the inside receiver on the line of scrimmage and the other two receivers off the line of scrimmage. Early means the three receivers go to the right, and the late means the receivers are going to the left. This is just terms simply used to simplify the call. One of the more common formations in the air raid is the empty formation, so an empty backfield and 5 receivers. With the 5 receivers, the defense must account for the entire field. Obviously, 5 receiver empty sets do limit the amount of run potential. Coaches can design quarterback runs that keep the defense honest, but the coach will pass the football out of empty sets. Now, let's check out some of my favorite plays and how Tyquan can be used in these situations. One of my favorite plays in the air raid offense is the mesh play, and it's probably one of my favorite offensive concepts in general. The play gets its name with 2 receivers crossing in the middle. They will meet at a mesh point where they can easily do a high five. The mesh is an intersection in the middle of the field where they almost touch shoulder to shoulder and continue to run across the field. This play is effective because if the defense wants to play man coverage, they must follow the receiver across the field, which they will get naturally picked by the other receiver. The mesh concept is one of the top plays in the air raid offense because other routes can be added to the concept to beat both man and zone. My favorite mesh play comes from the bunch formation where the third receiver and the backside receiver run a mesh at around 4 yards for a rub. The Z will run a 7-yard spot and the outside receiver will run a 12-yard dig. This employs the shallows concept with the 2 outside receivers, which should put the mic in conflict and the spot route should give answers to about zone coverage. The back will be releasing and running a nice wheel route. For this play, I would go with Parker as the X, Gesicki as the Y, Juju at the H receiver, Thorton as the Z, and potentially Pierre Strong as the halfback or the F receiver here. Parker and Juju would run a great mesh in having Gesicki on the spot route putting the mic in conflict, or potentially being forced to go with Gesicki, leaving Parker or Juju open post-mesh. Thornton would be a great option, but his speed would pressure the top of the defense, giving some space for Gesicki, and quickly clearing out a spot for Parker or Pierre Strong. Overall, just a great play. A Y cross gets its name because the Y receiver, typically a slot receiver, will cross through the middle of the defense. This play is operative because it gets a fast receiver across the field and allows the coach to manipulate the front end of the coverage with other receivers. A crossing receiver is one of the hardest things for a defense to handle because of the Mills concept built in on the backside. Coaches have used posts and clear-out routes to eliminate defensive backs from their zones, which they will then fill the void with the cross. You could also throw in a flash play action to amplify this. This example has the H receiver running a nice step route getting behind the first player in the box. This route should create some conflict with the alley defender who has chose the Y or the H. If the safety jumps to the H, the backside Mills option post route should be wide open. For this play, I would go with Parker at the X, Henry at the Y, Juju, Thornton, Douglas, Bourne as the H or as the Z, and Stevenson as the H-back or the F receiver here. Thornton would be key here as either the H or the Z because he would be stressing the defense and opening up Parker or potentially clearing out for Henry here. I should note, Thornton caught 2 receptions off stair routes against the Browns, one of them being a touchdown. They were crisp and create havoc in the Browns secondary. I know these plays are pretty elementary. However, they do illustrate how the air raid system can put a lot of pressure on the defense with the right personnel. As a result, it has completely revolutionized how the game is played. Teams are now throwing the football 40 to 50 times a game in hopes of a big play. Having a player like Thornton on your team not only gives you a deep threat, but it stresses the defense so the Mills and the shallows concepts create opportunities. Thornton's deep threat has to be dealt with, leaving fewer D-backs to handle the larger receivers with big yak ability to have space underneath. How does Bill O'Brien get Thornton involved? Well, besides spreading the defense and keeping them accountable, Thornton might be unleashed by Bill O'Brien, who could employ him vertically, horizontally, and most importantly, in motion. Getting Thornton up to speed is either going to reveal the defenses or get him wide open near top end speed. I would still like to see him in more jet sweeps or some options. Even if Thornton only gets a few receptions a game, they could be for big gains that are pivotal plays for the game. Just an observation from last year, the games the offense actually looked good, Thornton was involved. I think the same will be said about this upcoming season. So, what do you think about Tyquan? Will Bill O'Brien find a way to unleash the NITRO wide receiver? How many yards will he have? How many receptions? How many TDs? What's the stat line? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like my content, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.